Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to Comic Book Nostalgia. I'm CB Nostalgia and we have a little update on Moon Knight. Well, we got a brand new episode of Moon Knight this week, entitled Tombstone. And with that, we got the first appearance of a character from the comics I don't think a lot of people were expecting to see in the series. Let's take a couple minutes to talk about Marc Spector's brother, Randall, and what happened in this episode. Spoilers abound. Now, before we dive into that though, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button and ring the bell for all the updates. Also, our big giveaway. We're going to give away this Oculus Quest 2 at 50,000 subscribers. All you need to do to get in on the giveaway is be a subscriber and leave us a comment. Well, this week's episode of Moon Knight really went off the rails, and we totally dove deep into Marc Spector's origin story. Now, this origin story has been greatly altered from the original one in the comics. It's keeping some key elements, but it also goes in some very different directions. Now, like I said, there's spoilers here. If you haven't seen this week's episode, go ahead and click away. It's totally worth it, and I don't want to ruin anything about this week's show for you. Now, during this week's episode, we got the full origin story for Marc Spector, and many flashbacks to his family life. We saw Marc growing up, and we saw the source of a major part of Marc's trauma. Now, in the show, Marc and his brother Randall sneak off to a cave that apparently they played in as children. Now, as they approach the cave, it starts to rain, and Randall wants to go home. But being the big brother, he kind of pushes his brother into going with him. Now, we don't see what happens, but apparently Randall drowns in the cave. And for the rest of Marc's life, his mother holds him responsible for this. This creates a ton of abuse for Marc, and is key in Marc creating those new personalities. We actually see him become Steven in one of these clips. Now, if you're a fan of the comics, you know this is quite the departure from his brother there. His brother has been around in the comics since 1979. He actually made his first appearance in Hulk 17, but his path in the comics was very much a parallel path to Marc. Now, just like in the show, he was Marc's brother, and they were close. But in the comics, Rand actually resented Marc, who apparently beat Rand at almost all levels. They both grew up and joined the US military, and they both became mercenaries. They even worked side by side in multiple missions for the CIA. But eventually the bad side of Randall shows up, and during one of these missions for the CIA, he sells out to the opposition. He actually kills a woman named Lisa Maloney, who Marc was actually dating at the time. And before she dies, she actually tells Marc of Rand's betrayal. Now, Marc eventually huts down his brother for these events, and although Marc thinks he kills Randall, he does return to New York for a killing spree where he goes after nurses with a hatchet, basically becoming Hatchet Man. This eventually leads to a showdown between the brothers once again, and Randall leaps at Marc, but Marc dodges it and Randall stabs himself with a tree branch, and it seems he's killed. But actually it's later revealed that wasn't Randall, but an imposter. And it's comic books, and that Randall is actually a member of the Cult of Khonshu, and having been mysteriously enhanced, he now has impenetrable skin and superhero strength given to him by the Princess Naphesis. Now, during the Shadowland storyline, he actually resurfaced as the character ShadowKnight, convinced by the profile that he is Khonshu's next avatar on Earth. At this point, he basically has all of Moon Knight's powers, except he can emit radioactive blasts from his eyes, leading to a final showdown once again between the brothers. Now, it's pretty unclear to me if the show is going to go in this direction. We only have one episode left, and the deviation from the original storyline seems to indicate to me that's not going to happen. I actually am pretty glad they are not using him as ShadowKnight, especially in this first season. Quite often, Marvel shows and movies fall into this trope of a character where the hero and the villain effectively have the same powers. This would have been pretty boring on TV again, and considering what we got, it would have been a huge mistake to go in that direction. Now, whether ShadowKnight appears in the future, who knows? The character is pretty cool and would look awesome on screen, so I wouldn't be surprised if he appeared. Notice they didn't show you his brother die, so we'll have to wait and see what goes on. It was a pretty interesting take on the character. We're going to have to let the whole story work out, but if you're a fan of Moon Knight mythology, you may have been slightly bothered by the alteration. Sometimes comic book changes work, and sometimes they don't. In any case, we have one more episode of Moon Knight left, and I can't wait to see what they bring us. I'm curious if we'll ever see Randall again, but until then, I gotta know what you guys think. Are you surprised that Marvel Studios made major changes to the character of Randall Spector? And do you believe he'll return in the future to take up the role of ShadowKnight? Sound off in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure you hit like, click subscribe, and if you don't ring that bell, you're not getting any updates. Peace.